America, we got to get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, hope you all had a good weekend. There's the big note, Kings. Keith, thank you. Hope everybody had a really good weekend. I hope all of you who celebrate, as I do, I hope you all had a blessed Easter Sunday. I hope you relaxed. I hope you reflected. I hope, as I always hope every weekend, that you got away from it all a little bit, away from the politics a little bit. I've alluded to this, so I want to jump right into it. I believe in my bones that Trumpism needs to be defeated, and that the hate in this country needs to be stopped. I don't believe our democracy can survive or will survive if Trumpism continues. And I don't believe our democracy can survive, will survive, if way too many Americans stay on this road of hate, where we hate the people we disagree with, where we think the people who disagree with us are our enemy, our mortal enemy. They need to be destroyed. Way too many Americans of all political stripes are on this road. Way too many of you listening to me right now are on this road. I don't care what your politics are. Now, I go at Trump and Trumpism every day, but that's not going to cut it. That's not enough. I mean, we need to defend democracy. We need to defend the rule of law. Trump and Trumpism, I believe, are direct threats to democracy and the rule of law. But when Trump's gone, our democracy still teeters if we're so divided. And the divide comes from the hate that we have for each other on the opposite sides of the political spectrum. Can't stand. Again, I don't, doesn't matter what your politics are, MAGA or progressives. If we live in a country where we despise and hate the people we disagree with, where we think the people we disagree with are our enemy, I don't know how a democracy, a country stands with that. And so to me, that's the greater mission. That's the greater cause. Stopping the hate. Yes, every day I'm yelling about Trump. I'm yelling about the threat to democracy and the rule of law. But the long-term fight here is we've got to get Americans off of this road where we hate each other, where we want nothing to do with the people who disagree with us, where we don't want to even communicate with them. We don't want to live next to them. That's just not tenable, which is why every week, and I talked about this last week, every week I'm getting out somewhere in the country and I'm engaging the American people in conversations. I'm having conversations every week, and we began a while ago. Every week I'm somewhere in the country having conversations with Americans, with regular people of all political stripes, left and right, everywhere in between. Love Trump, hate Trump, doesn't matter. MAGA, MAGA, you think MAGA's the worst. It doesn't matter. I'm having conversations with Americans of all political stripes, because this country needs to have conversation. This country needs face-to-face conversation. When I was out there last year campaigning for Kamala Harris for 3 months, every day in a battleground state, man, I would hear this over and over from people. Again, regardless of politics, the hunger for conversation, the hunger to have face-to-face conversation, the hunger to try to understand people who don't think like them. I found this everywhere I went. So when the election came and went and Trump won, I decided, you know what, the hell with it. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to get out there every week. I'm going to have conversations with the American people. I'm going to get the hell out of sitting in a TV studio in New York City or Washington, D.C. I want to go somewhere in the country and have conversations with real people and film these conversations so that all of us can watch these conversations about where America is at right now. What kind of an America do we want to be right now? What's got you fired up? What's got you scared? What's got you angry? What's got you excited? Everything from everybody about where this country is at right now. And we've been out there for a while. And we've been filming these conversations. And on this podcast now, every week, at least 3 times a week to start, we're going to show you clips of these conversations. I want you to see them. I want you to react to them. I want to talk about them. I think and I believe we can all learn from what regular people in America think, how they feel. Again, across the political spectrum. This is going to be the thrust now of this daily show, The Social Contract with Joe Walsh. We're not going to stop yelling every day about what's going on every day. That will continue to be a big part of what we do. But the fight to save this democracy is about the American people getting off of the road of hating the people they disagree with. And that can't happen unless we have conversations. So we've been out there having conversations. We've been filming these conversations. And we're going to begin showing them to you today. Here's a snippet today. Let me just tease what I'm going to show you today. A while back, I sat down with 6 lefties in Los Angeles, 6 proud Los Angeles progressives. It's a fascinating conversation. I know, MAGA, that many of you think like I'm a Democrat, I'm a progressive. I'm not. I'm still a proud Tea Party conservative, whatever the heck that is right now. But I sat down a while back with a group of progressives out in Los Angeles. And it was a fascinating conversation. And to a man and a woman, they were devastated and disappointed and angry by the fact that Trump won and that Trump was president. But I was amazed as I listened to these progressives in Los Angeles, very involved, engaged political people. I was really surprised. And let's be clear, what I'm about to show you, they're all left of center, these folks I sat down with in LA. I was really surprised by how not just interested they were, how insistent they were that this country find a way to come together. Man, they were pissed off that Trump was president. They were scared to death that Trump was president. But almost underneath everything they said, and I'm just going to show you a clip today underneath almost everything these progressives, these LA progressives said was a desire that, man, they're worried about this country. This country's got to somehow stay together. And the only way we're going to stay together is I do want to understand the people who voted for Trump. I didn't think I'd hear that. I did hear that. So I'm going to play you something here in a second. Hold on one sec, Keith. From my conversation out in Los Angeles a while back with a group of progressives. Here we're talking about what their biggest fears are for this country. I'll remind you of this before the show's over today. We're going to have the longer clips from all of these conversations that we'll post on our Substack, and we'll probably post the full conversations as well. But here is just a bit of what we talked about, their biggest fears for this country. TikTok, I'm going to, because we're crude here and the technology is not always up to snuff, I'm going to put you, TikTok, in front of this clip when we play it. Hopefully you can hear it. Keith, go ahead. Give it to me.
Changed because of chaos. One was the Principate that started with Augustus, where it stopped being a democracy anymore and it basically became a monarchy.
Yeah.
And the second time was after Commodus, after the unrest there, Septimus Severus. The incentives changed that you had to basically pay the military to stay in power. So I think those are all good points what everybody else said, but I would add this, that Trump has changed the incentives to be a politician, to be president so much that the norms have shifted so much that we are in this moment like Rome, where the presidency is going to be something completely different going forward.
That's a great answer. I'll close with my biggest fear is not that we become North Korea, we become hungry. Yeah. We become a soft authoritarian state where right, the president, everything just slowly changes and we no longer live in a true democracy. I come from the right. It pains me to say this. Most of my friends on the right are open to authoritarianism. They've always been open. Yeah, I'll give you the final word. Yeah, it's got to be short.
I'll make it short.
And then my final fear is, to your point, I think to keep this thing going, the American people had a job, and their job was to stay informed and engaged. And I think we stopped doing our job, and I don't know that we'll get back to doing our job.
Just a snippet from the conversation out in Los Angeles. I went around the circle. Here you go. Let me get you set up, TikTok. There we go. Boom, boom. And I asked everybody, give me your biggest fear for the country, this country you love. And by the way, these conversations I'm having with MAGA and progressives and everybody in between, never do I doubt anyone's love for this country. When I sat down with 6 progressives out in LA, it was clear how much they loved this country. Their biggest fears, and we'll put out more of it, their biggest fears were they feared tyranny. They feared that we had a king in the White House, an authoritarian, and what that would do to America, a strong man in the White House. And their second biggest fear for America was the division. They were scared to death at how divided we have become as a country. And they seemed genuinely perplexed by this, confused by this, like didn't understand how it got to this point. We don't listen to each other. We don't interact with each other. I can tell you, sitting down with 6 progressives out in LA, they generally didn't understand how people could vote for Trump. As someone who voted for Trump, I did back in 2016, and as someone who still engages with people who voted for Trump every single day, I found that curious. And they were curious, and they asked me questions over and over out in LA, like what draws people to Trump? Why did people vote for Trump again this year? With everything we knew about him, Joe, how could that happen? Now, MAGA, jump on them if you want, but they were genuinely curious. They wanted to know why people voted for Trump. They wanted to understand. That was my biggest takeaway sitting down with 6 LA progressives is they genuinely wanted to understand how the other side thought, what the other side thought. And what that one young guy said about how the presidency, his fear is the presidency is changing. We've elected someone who's now broken all the rules, broken all the norms. He compared it to the fall of Rome. We're going to lose our democracy. The country is going to slowly begin electing more and more strongmen, authoritarians. That's a pretty consistent fear among many in this country. I'm not of the left, and that's my biggest fear, is that this country will embrace authoritarians. Final thought right now. The other fear that I threw out there, I'm afraid that the American people have stopped doing their job. Like the American people have stopped being informed and stopped being engaged, stopped doing their job of paying attention and staying informed, following the truth, following facts. I heard this from them over and over and over. The worry about disinformation. Joe, how can Trump supporters believe the bullshit he says every day? Don't they know it's bullshit? These folks ask me. Why do they believe the lies? It's a real concern. It's a real concern. And I can just say again, their intentions were awesome. These 6 progressives out in LA, they don't want, in their minds, half the country is ruled by lies and disinformation. MAGA, you may disagree with a lot of that, but that's a real fear of theirs. It's a concern of theirs. They don't want that to be the case. They don't want half of America driven by lies and disinformation. They don't think that will lead to a very good place. I don't either. They want that fixed. It was a really interesting conversation. For longer clips that we'll put out, this was just one little clip from LA. Again, go to my Substack, subscribe to my Substack, and you'll see a range of everything we're going to do. The conversations, thanks, Keith, Social Contract with Joe Walsh.substack.com. The conversations we're having with people across the political spectrum. I think, I know it's not right? The daily, boom, 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 boom. Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks. Trump's great, Trump's great, Trump's great. What did Trump do today? What did Trump say today? Oh my God, right? I know you can go anywhere for that. You can be bombarded by that and go to any podcast, any website, any news channel, and you can get that every single day. You'll get some of that here. Because remember, I started the show, I feel like we've got 2 missions. Trump and Trumpism need to be defeated, and the hate needs to stop. I want to focus more on the hate. I'm not going to stop focusing on the defeating of Trump and Trumpism. It's an immediate threat. But again, the democracy won't stand if the hate continues. Can't. And that's why we're going to keep getting out there every week, having conversations with Americans, and then putting these conversations up filming these conversations and putting them up everywhere for all of you to see. We'll be doing this 3-4 times a week on this podcast, and we'll be putting them everywhere on our Substack. One other issue today: Pope Francis died this morning at the age of 88. Pope Francis. I, Catholic kid I did not sufficiently appreciate Pope Francis's message. I'd often get a little pissed off at Pope Francis back in the day, because I'm someone who believes if you're a sovereign nation, you've got to have borders. And if you have borders, you've got to defend those borders. And Pope Francis, who talked about loving all God's children, the migrants, the immigrants, everyone, I never thought in the day that Pope Francis paid enough heed to, okay, I get all of that, Pope, but borders. You want to come to America, fine. You want to come to France, fine, but you got to do it legally. And so I often felt at odds with Pope Francis. Never doubted what a good, great man he was. Never doubted what a good, great shepherd he was. My God, he was a man of love and peace. Never doubted that. But I'll tell you what, I've learned to appreciate him late in his life. I've learned to appreciate his message of embracing all God's children and loving all God's children and not letting walls and fear guide what we do. This quote of his, do you have it there, Keith? Pope Francis: a person who thinks only about building walls wherever they may be and not building bridges is not Christian. Man, you can't get more Christian than that. And maybe it's, look, I'm someone who politically, you want to come to America, we welcome you, we want you, come on. Got to do it legally, right? We've got a border. You got to do it legally, but man, we need to welcome in a lot more of God's children. We need to make it easier for people to come here legally. We should accept a lot more people who are coming here to claim asylum. We need to be the land of freedom and opportunity for all of God's children around the world. If I were president of America, man, we would dramatically increase the number of people we allow into this country legally. We would make it easier to come here legally. We'd clean up and fix our broken immigration system, and we wouldn't do what Trump and MAGA are doing right now, which is leading with fear and cruelty. Maybe that's what's compelled me to have a greater appreciation for the Pope's message of building bridges and not walls, because Trump and MAGA are such the other extreme. Trump and MAGA are keep everybody out. Trump and MAGA are deport everybody. Trump and MAGA are screw due process of the Constitution, put anybody on a plane and throw them down into an El Salvador jail. Trump and MAGA are, let's maybe even think about getting American citizens out of here. Trump and MAGA are, you know what? You're here on a student visa. We don't like the way you think. Get out of here. We're going to deport you. Trump and MAGA are about snatching people up off of the streets because of who they are and how they think. Maybe it's because Trump and MAGA, when it comes to immigrants and migrants, are so ugly and so cruel and so driven by fear of the other that that's helped bring me a bit home more to Pope Francis and his message. And that's helped me gain a greater appreciation for Pope Francis. Pope Francis said in his Easter speech recently, how much contempt is stirred up at times towards the vulnerable, the marginalized, and the migrants. I appeal to all those in positions of political responsibility in our world not to yield to the logic of fear, which only leads to isolation of others. Fear of the other, fear of those who don't look like you, fear of those who don't think like you, fear of those who don't worship like you, fear of those who don't have the same sexual orientation as you do, fear of the other. That is what guides way, way too much of MAGA and what we see on the right in America right now. And Pope Francis epitomized the antithesis of that. Now, I can criticize him, as I did back in the day, for bending over way too much, right? And not understanding at all the importance of borders and laws. But I can never question where his heart was. And his heart was always, Pope Francis, I welcome you. Poor, frightened, persecuted, white, black, brown, gay, straight, transgender. You're broken. You crawled across the border. You're here claiming asylum. You're here on a student visa. Pope Francis, I welcome you all. It would be good of all of us to ponder that today as we live today in a country that represents the exact opposite of that, with a guy in the White House who says the exact opposite. Get the hell out of here. We don't want you here. I don't want anybody like you here. I'm going to build a wall around America and keep you out. Trumpism, MAGA, all about building walls. Pope Francis, all about building bridges. Rest in peace, a great man and a great shepherd who probably understood the Easter message yesterday before he passed away. Unlike Trump, did you see Trump's tweet yesterday? Keith, we got that? Donald Trump, President of the United States, sent out a happy Easter message. Donald Trump, happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, the mentally insane, and well-known MS-13 gang members and white beaters back into the country. Weak, ineffective judges, sleepy Joe Biden sucks. Open borders policy sucks. Screw you all. You're the worst. He was the worst president. He cheated. You all cheated me out of the 2020 election. He is a moron. You're all morons. Happy Easter. Donald Trump yesterday, dear leader, clearly understanding the Easter message, right? And I think of all dear leaders, Christian supporters, shouting amen. Amen. Happy Easter, y'all suck, and I won the 2020 election. The Easter message by our president. Pretty simple, right? Today's message, today's takeaway, be like Pope Francis. Don't be like Donald Trump. How about it? Be like Pope Francis. Don't be like Donald Trump. Pretty easy. Couple final points. Again, I don't know. I don't know, guys. TikTok, I don't know if there's an audience for what I'm about to do. I'm going out into the country every week, and I'm having conversations with the American people, and we're filming those conversations, and we're going to put them up on this podcast, and we're going to put them up on my Substack. And they're going to be there for the American people to think about, talk about, and reflect upon. I have no idea if there's an audience for this. I know there's an audience for Trump, 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 Trump this, Trump that every day. I know there's an audience for that. But I don't want to do that every day. I'm not going to do that every day. And I don't think doing that is going to preserve ultimately this democracy. I think Trump sucks. I think he's an existential threat to our democracy. I think he's an existential threat to the rule of law. I think he lies as he breathes. I think he's a dictator, a king. I think he's cruel. I think he's ignorant. You know what I think about Donald Trump, and I won't stop saying that. I guess my point is, after Trump's gone, and that will happen one day, we still have this problem of a dangerously divided country, a country, I think, on the verge of a divorce, a country with most Americans on this road of hate, hating the people we disagree with, considering the people we disagree with to be our mortal enemy. And ultimately, that leads to political violence. I'd rather help try to fix that. And that doesn't happen unless we have conversations with each other. All of us. The little snippet I showed today, talking to 6 progressives out in LA, or talking to a bunch of MAGA from Southern Illinois, and everybody in between, and bringing Americans of disparate viewpoints together to just have conversations. This thing won't last if we don't do that. So I don't know, right, if there's an audience for this. Maybe all of America just wants to be on the daily fucking battlefield and just pound each other every day. Maybe. But that's not what I'm going to do. That's not what I want to do. And if there's not a humongous audience for these conversations, then so be it. Make sure that you subscribe to my Substack, because we are going to post clips of all of the conversations on my Substack and longer versions, and we'll comment and talk about all the different conversations we're having on my Substack. So please make sure to be privy to all of this, to be a part of this conversation. Subscribe to my Substack, Social Contract with Joe Walsh. Second thing, shoot me an email. There's the Substack, Social Contract with Joe Walsh. .substack.com. Go there when you're done listening to me right now and subscribe so that you can see all these conversations that we're having out there with the American people. Shoot me an email and let me know what your fears are for America. If I asked you that question, what's your biggest fear for America? What would you say? Just shoot me an answer to that. The Social Contract with Joe Walsh at gmail.com. That's all one word. The Social Contract with Joe Walsh at gmail.com. Your biggest fear for America. Let me know what it is. Final thing. Hey, you want Joe Walsh to come to your town? Hey, would you like Joe Walsh to come to your neighborhood and have a conversation with you and a few of your friends to talk about where this country is at, where you think we're at, what your concerns, your fears are for this country? Invite me. That's all I got to do. Invite me. Every week I go somewhere else around the country, and I'll sit down with 2 people. I'll sit down with 200 people. We're having conversations. These are not debates. They're not fights, not big rallies. I think the American people are hungry for face-to-face conversation, and that's what I'm going to give them, and that's what I'm doing. If you'd like me, If you'd like to host a conversation with me in your town and or your neighborhood or your place of work or whatever, invite me. Just shoot me an email. Again, the social contract with Joe Walsh at gmail.com. All one word. The social contract with Joe Walsh at gmail.com. TikTok, I'll be there. God bless. Have a good week. Thanks, everybody. Be brave.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract